Today, I'm so happy to be joined by Lindsey Coffey, environmental activist, model, and first U.S. representative to win Miss Earth in 2020. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited, to get into it.
So, just as a model and climate activist, what can you tell us about the connections between plastics and the fashion industry?
There is a tremendous amount of plastic within the fashion industry, and it is one of the greatest contributors to the plastic crisis. And it's within everything. We have it in our footwear, our accessories, our packaging. The reliance that the industry has on plastic is associated with the overproduction of it as well, where we even see leftovers and the excess of the plastic shipped down to the global south, where they then experience the consequences of our actions to an even more catastrophic degree. We see it contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, contaminating our waterways and our oceans through chemicals, dyes, heavy metals, and in microplastics as well. Microplastics specifically are incredibly detrimental. Marine life mistaken it for food, and that causes an array of issues. It affects reproduction, developmental issues, behavioral changes within the ecosystem, and also leads to starvation and death. We've even found microplastics within us and nanoplastics, and studies have shown micro nanoplastics within human waste, within our blood and our organs. These plastics have been shown embedded in the digestive tracts of fish. They are also embedded within our organs as well. Now, this is a roughly new investigation where we do not know what the long-term health risks will be, but we do know that the chemicals within plastic, how they are harmful and what they could potentially lead to, which similarly to marine life, it also affects reproduction. We do have developmental issues associated with it. It disrupts hormones as well, and also is linked to certain cancers. Considering plastic living inside of us, I don't even want to imagine what the health effects will be long term. But I can tell you, anything that's in your body that's not supposed to be there will always be a problem.
That's such a good point. And I think just, noting how the plastic industry or the fashion industry, how interconnected it is to the plastic industry and how, detrimental all of those harms are to human health and ocean health. And I know you've spoken previously about the importance of finding your own climate story. I'm interested to know what advice you would give to engage in activism around plastics.
Have you ever even heard of a climate story? Some people haven't.
I actually haven't.
Okay. For those who are unfamiliar, a climate story is a personal connection you have to our climate, to nature. And we really encourage those to find their climate story because we found people tend to act when things are personal. Every single person on this planet has a climate story. Everyone is affected by the climate crisis in different ways and also to different degrees. Your climate story could be anything from experiencing a natural disaster to falling ill to the effects of climate change. Having an emotional connection to nature could be one. But crafting a story specifically around plastic, I feel would probably be the easiest because everyone has some type of experience with plastic. I mean, we see it littering our streets. It is within our oceans. If you've seen, a loose plastic bag floating by. And now within us, those are going to be effects as well, where I'm sure many people are going to be able to write a story in association with it. If you live in a community that is near plastic production, you're also going to experience greater pollution. And that's going to be part of your story. If you are a farmer, microplastics contribute to soil degradation, and that affects productivity. It affects quality. It's going to affect their livelihoods as well. Same with a fisherman. The same concept applies. It's affecting food stability, and both of their livelihoods are put into question. It's so imperative to take the time to reflect on the state of your surrounding environment and see how it contributes and affects and plays a role within your personal life, because that is how you will find the specific actions that need to be addressed in order to correct it. But universally, some great actions are, of course, voting,
Right.
where you want to vote for a politician that has a pro-environment agenda that aligns with your values, your concerns even, within your district and nationally as well. Encourage regulation, support EPR policies, and recycling initiatives. There's better waste management systems that we need to have implemented. Another great way is to also educate, whether it's within your own life or to a larger audience. Educating about the extent of this crisis the solutions that we have and what it takes to get there is very important. There's also the moral elevation effects, which I love psychology. And so there is strategy to activism and it does play a role. And the moral elevation effect is an emotional response witnessing moral acts of beauty. It does trigger a response in the brain that does activate the area that's associated with social engagement and motivating action. It's a strategy that we should become aware of because it will help us carry out our actions to the fullest and our activism to the fullest so we can see a greater change.
Well, I really loved what you said about just recognizing how interconnected we are with nature, that we're part of nature, and I think that really aligns with the mission of Earth Law Center, and I think that's part of what we're missing in terms of our actions
Yeah.
and just how we got to the point that we're at today. And I think just with that recognition, I'm interested to know, what do you think is missing around the plastic crisis? What awareness is missing? And how do you think that mindfulness really plays a role?
I think this is a great question, and you kind of already said my answer. There is awareness around plastic. People are familiar that plastic is a problem. They know that it's overwhelming our landfills, know the potential health risks associated with it. They see it littering our streets, it's in our oceans. They are aware. So, what awareness is missing? We've advocated for all of the physical awareness surrounding and representing the plastic crisis. So, what awareness is missing isn't within the physical, but it's internal awareness. And I believe that is mindfulness that is missing. Mindfulness and awareness is used interchangeably, but there are different levels of awareness, and you can be aware without being mindful. So here's an unrelated but completely relatable example that I'm sure everyone understands. How many times have you heard someone say, don't hang out with them or don't date them, they're not good for you? And then the response is, oh, I'm aware. And they know they shouldn't do it, but they do it anyways.
Yeah.
You're aware of your behavior. But then there's another layer. It's your subconscious that is triggering those actions, triggering that behavior. And that's what most people aren't aware of. It kind of begs the question as, why do I do the things that I do?
Right.
So that is the exact behavior, the situational behavior we're experiencing around our plastics crisis. Mindfulness is a deeper level of processing. You can be aware of your surroundings, your behavior, what's happening in the world. But the difference is with mindfulness, all of that is internalized. It's internalized with an intention, the intention to do better, to be better. And that intention then turns into an action. And I know this is a very psychoanalytical response, but that is the type of mindfulness I feel is missing. It's about realizing that the truth of the world extends far beyond your backyard, that you play both a direct and indirect role. And that's the role mindfulness must play. It's allowing us to explore deeper, to live with the best of intention, not only within ourselves, but beyond ourselves.
I love that. And I think it's, just to add on, recognizing what's outside of our control. There's only so much we can do as individuals. And I think we can all be imperfectly doing our best, around plastics.
Yes.
And then advocating for governments and even the countries here negotiating the plastics treaty to do their part.
Oh, absolutely.
So
There's
I love that.
also a term like consciously unconscious. So you know there are certain things that you can do, but they are out of your grasp. You can only do so much, which is true. There are certain roads that you can only go so far down. But it's also that mindfulness of knowing that you can even take the road in the first place, because there's a lot of inaction. Maybe they don't even know where to begin. Being mindful enough and aware enough that you can at least go the furthest that you can. That's all we're asking. Do what you can with the resources that you have, the assets that you have, in the position that you're in.
The last question, acknowledging the harms of plastic to the ocean and just the role the ocean plays in not only sustaining us, but the climate and the planet. In your opinion, what responsibility do you think the fashion industry has, or even going back to us as individuals?
The industry and individuals share a collective responsibility when it comes to safeguarding our environment. I mean, we have everything on this planet because of her. When it comes to the fashion industry, I feel most people are aware of what has to change. It's poorly regulated, if regulated at all. There's no accountability, no transparency. They create cheap and poorly made items in as much quantity as quickly as possible. There's brands that are greenwashing us. An unfair burden and responsibility falls on the consumer, and all of that has to change. And consumers, they acknowledge that and they point the finger of blame, and they're like, this is your fault, you have to do this, these are your consequences, we need to change this. And I 100% completely agree with them. It is their fault, but it's also the consumer's fault as
Mm.
well. Individuals underestimate their impact, both positive and negative. The entire world is dictated through supply and demand, and consumers are the ones who control market trends. There's so much power within the choices that we make. A lot of people forget that. Since we are the ones that are controlling the market trends, say fashion ends up taking sole responsibility and they stop producing a product. Okay, great, but if there's still a demand for it, another company is going to pop up tomorrow to fulfill that demand. There are a lot of people that don't understand how much influence they have within their actions, especially just as consumers in general, consuming fashion. Our voice, our actions, our purchasing power, it carries such great influence. And if we can understand that and understand the power that we have, that's whenever we can then step into it and enact real change. I understand both play a part, but I really do like to emphasize focusing on our individual actions, how we can change the system, of realizing that we are in control of so much more than we perceive ourselves to be. It's that mindfulness that will allow us to regain that control.
You know, we all have a relationship with nature, with Mother Earth, and we can all make, you know, better and more sustainable choices to protect her. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much again for
Thank
joining
you.
me today. Be sure to follow Lindsey Coffey and Earth Law Center. Appreciate it.